Welcome back, everyone, to episode 5 of the Lasallian Way. My name is Leif Kerwald. I'm pastoral coordinator here at St. Charles, and we're happy to welcome Andy Poundstone, who coordinates the Academic Resource Center for De La Salle. But Andy, before I invite you to introduce yourself, we have been learning about some of the Lasallian expressions, and so when I say, let us remember, we are in the holy presence of God. Well said. So, as I said, this is episode 5, and we know that we're going to have a conversation for 20-25 minutes, and then you can participate. What I would ask those of you present here today to do, if you have something to say, it would be helpful if you came over and stood addressing this computer, then the people at home on Zoom can hear you better. And those of you on Zoom are welcome to, well, you're pretty much welcome to interrupt if that's your need, but you know how to engage in conversation just like the rest of us. So, Andy Poundstone, welcome.
Thank you.
To the Lasallian Way. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at De La Salle.
Okay, so I've lived almost my whole life in Portland, except for about 4 years of my life. I grew up in Northeast Portland and went to Portland Christian High School. My wife and I, we have 3 kids. My daughter just turned 15.
Can you guys wave? Yes, they're online here.
I have 2 sons who are 12 and 8. Courtney, my wife, and I went to the Peace Corps together, spent 2 years in South America. We were English majors, and we got placed in a non-formal education situation, and that's where I started doing education. I got here to De La Salle sort of not the traditional way of going to graduate school. My graduate school was out in the jungle working as an English teacher.
Where in South America?
In Suriname.
Okay.
Which is a non-Spanish speaking, it's a former Dutch colony. And so after the Peace Corps, we landed for a couple of years in San Diego, where I taught adult basic education and ESL. Came up to Portland, spent 7 years as a Title I tutor in North Portland at a school named Open Meadow High School, an alternative program. And after that, when that North Portland program of Open Meadow closed down, I landed at De La Salle as the Academic Resource Center coordinator.
Wonderful. So what is the Academic Resource Center?
It is a program that the school started with an eye to improving our retention rate. We found that we were losing too many students academically because there were just not the supports to get students through the 4 years of high school. So before I arrived, they hatched this idea to form a center that will provide tutoring and academic supports in the hopes of getting more students through the 4 years to graduation. And in the last 7 years, this is my 7th year, the retention rate has improved. We've cut the number of academic dismissals from, say, like 19 a year down to less than 10. So it's improved by quite a bit.
Well, and you should take some credit for that then.
Yes. I'll take a little bit, but I can't take all of it. There's a lot of people who have contributed to that.
We heard last week that, and maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but I wanted to remember this, that sometimes people can go to your center and volunteer.
Yes.
To tutor or teach something interesting or.
Yes.
True?
Yes, yeah, we do have volunteer tutors. I mean, since COVID, a lot of the volunteering has sort of been on hold, and now we're sort of trying to ramp it up again as we come back in person. But yes, we have a small staff of paid tutors, but we welcome volunteer tutors who have an interest.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So our expression today is touching mind, or teaching minds, touching hearts. That is Lasallian, yes. I mean, my understanding of the life of St. John Baptist de La Salle is thin, but I know this much, that in his desire to educate young people who otherwise didn't have the option for education was more than just the mind, but a seeking to touch the heart.
Yes.
As well. But break that open more.
Okay. It's basically it's the recognition that the students who are in our care are not only minds, as you say. They're children of God, loved by God, who have whole lives, families, communities, a history of experiences that we want to be aware of and address all of that, not just their intellectual life, but their spiritual life, their emotional life, everything that goes into education, true education, which is not just about GPAs and test scores and what college you go to. It's much more fundamental than that. I think that what that really involves is addressing some very fundamental questions with students. Things like, what are our lives for? What does it mean to love God? What does it mean to love our neighbors, ourselves? How can we live those things out in this community? And in order to have those sorts of conversations, it's important to be in relationship with students. It's not just a teacher-student relationship where I'm imparting information to you. It's a process of building trust, having important conversations, asking important questions.
So in your role in the Academic Resource Center, give me a sense of how that plays out, or even I picture you as the coordinator, but I imagine you are also in relationship with a lot of the students.
Sure. So I work very closely with a small group of students, probably about 40 to 45 students who are regulars in the Academic Resource Center. And it's a unique position to be in the school, because it means we have small groups each period, and I have a couple of other adults in the room, maybe another tutor. We have a Jesuit volunteer who works with us in there. And it gives us all the opportunity to, we don't have to manage an entire room of 25 students.
Sure.
So we have opportunities to have one-on-one conversations or small group conversations. I can have a student walk into my office and if they seem to be having a bad day, I can sort of like try to break that down a little bit and see what we can do to help. So I feel very fortunate to have that luxury of being able to have those more intimate conversations in the smaller group setting.
Let me go this direction. Teaching mind, touching hearts. How does that guide your own life? And how might you invite the rest of us to take that into our own lives?
Well, I think all of us, adults, all of us have contact with some children in our lives, whether it's our own children or children in the parish or just children that we know. But this goes not just for children, but for all of the people we encounter in life. We have an opportunity to make connections. And especially with younger people, I think they're especially now craving connections with adults, looking for mentors. And I would just say, I get to do it every day because I've worked with 275 students at De La Salle. Others may not have the sort of that opportunity built into their lives, but if you have a connection or relationship with any children, I would say, cultivate that, get to know young people, the world is kind of scary for everybody, but for kids, especially right now, the future may be sort of unknown and mysterious. And what's going to happen in the next 5-10 years? What does it look like? And I think students, young people, really need those connections with adults. A lot of times they maybe don't have a lot of adult relationships in their life. So all of us should seek out opportunities to work with students.
Does it require me to see myself as a teacher?
Well, no. I mean, De La Salle says that everybody that works in the school with children is an educator. It doesn't mean just the people who are standing up in front of the students in the classroom. It's everybody. And that goes for every staff member at school, every adult in the parish. If you have something to offer to a young person, then you have the ability to touch their heart, touch their lives in some way. So no, it's not just teachers. It's really all of us.
It seems to me too that, yes, I agree. It's really all of us, both from this side and the other side, that the receiver of this posture, this attitude, doesn't necessarily have to be a child, right?
Right. Right. I mean, the way that we encounter children, I mean, we should be open to everybody that we come into contact with, right? And we should also recognize that that as adults that we don't know all the answers. There's a lot that we can learn from younger people, and that's part of the building the relationship with its students is not to take that posture of I'm the authority and you're here to learn from me. It's more of like we're in collaboration. There's things that I can give you, and there's a lot that you can give me, and that's a key part of, I think, the
a two-way street. There's a lot of mutuality there,
and it helps build trust. I think it's much different now than when I was in high school, where I think teenagers were maybe a little bit more just sort of like deferential to teachers. I think school has been very hard for students. I mean, it's not been kind to a lot of students. And by the time many of our students get to high school, they've maybe sort of on their guard a little bit. And it takes some time and building a relationship to earn the trust of 14, 15-year-olds who, have struggled in life.
Does your Christian faith play a role in the way that you coordinate the Academic Resource Center?
It plays a role in everything. I have a disclaimer. I'm not a Catholic.
I wasn't sure. Yeah. I didn't think so.
I'm not a Catholic.
But
I grew up in a Presbyterian church. I go to a Lutheran church now, but it informs everything that I do. I think primarily in the sense that we approach our students as persons created in the image of God. When I see students who have had very hard lives, who may be coming with learning differences, who struggle mightily, and then realize that this is a person who's God's image, it radically changes the way that you might usually think about students who are acting up in the classroom, or it tells us something about God, I think.
Sure. How does that feel to you living your faith out of a Protestant expression in a Catholic school?
Well, I mean, I just look for the points of commonality, and the main one that I've already mentioned is treating each student as an individual, but not only as an individual, a member of a community of faith, and treating them as you would treat Christ.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that on a basic, fundamental level is there's nothing particularly Catholic or Protestant about it. It's what we do as believers.
And the rest of it matters little when we can get to that fundamental level in relationship, particularly with young people, but with any of us, it seems to me.
Right. I mean, there are, Mr. Gregory will talk to you about all of the finer points of Catholic theology,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really about honoring the image of Christ in every single student.
You remember we had Dave Gregory at our first episode. So yeah, thank you. Cook on comments, questions that you have. But another question that's in my mind, Andy, is I'm looking at you and I see me as well as a white male, well-educated. There's a lot of things that have put me and perhaps some of us in positions of privilege in our culture. It's also clear to me as I sit in my office and I watch students go by every single day of all different colors and ethnicities, many of whom I know come from families who are not privileged. What's been your experience of connecting with kids in that context?
It goes back to something I said earlier of just being open to learning from every student, to not make assumptions about anyone, to get to know people, and to learn their stories, to learn about their families, about their communities, to acknowledge the fact, openly, my life has been very different from yours. Tell me what I don't know, and what I need to know to be respectful of your experience and to learn where you're coming from. It's something that you have to do every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something you fail at every day. But then you try to do better.
What you just said strikes me as fascinating because it implies a level of relationship, even vulnerability, that must be part of the air that you all breathe at De La Salle in order for even that conversation to take place. Because I can imagine without a basic level of relationship between yourself and student, even asking that question could get it kind of an immediate dismissal. You just don't get it.
Right. Yeah, and that's something that you have to always keep in your mind, is that even when you think you've got it, you gotta hold out the possibility that you don't quite get it, and just continually being aware of your blind spots and relying on students to tell them to tell you what they want you to know, and it takes time. It's not something that you're going to bring up on first day of school. It's a process, And I feel very fortunate, you know, most teachers work with freshmen in their first year, and then they get a whole new group of students the next year. And the same with seniors. I get to work with the same students over the course of 4 years, and have the ability to develop that relationship and, you know, knowledge of the student in a way that I think is really unique in the school.
What are you thinking? What are you thinking? Comments, questions?
I have one.
Sandy, maybe take your mask off and get close to the computer if you can.
With the ethnicities and the different nationalities, how do you deal with bullying?
Bullying?
Yeah,
Hmm.
which is prevalent in so many high schools now.
Right. We might need to get Mr. Broadus in here, the Dean of Students. He's the one who deals with the behavioral issues the most. And you're right. I mean, because there are so many different backgrounds represented in the school, I think there's probably a, you know, I wouldn't say antipathy, but a not immediately, you know, like, and there's some self-segregation that happens, and I mean those things, and what you do is, I mean, you just have to pay attention. You have to pay attention to what's going on in the hallways. You have to pay attention to what's happening in classrooms. You have to listen attentively to what's going on, not because you want to, you know, get into kids' business, but if something is percolating over in the corner, it's very important that you know, we stop and we say, what do we need to do in this situation? What is the respectful way of relating to a classmate? You know, it's definitely, you know, Mr. Broadus will definitely hold the line, like, this is behavior that's not acceptable. This is what we're trying to do to uphold everyone and to value everyone.
Is it a huge problem or minimal?
I don't think it's a huge problem in our school. I've been in situations in education where it's been a bigger problem. Obviously, it exists, but I think that the De La Salle students are mostly pretty kind to one another. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. What else are you thinking? Judy.
Hi, thank
Hi.
you for being here.
Sure.
I'm Judy. I was wondering, how does the spirituality that you have in your school help the student in an academic way? And do you see students that increase their spirituality because of the atmosphere that you look to generate within your school?
It's a really good question. And I think that spirituality is an area where De La Salle has some work to do, to be very frank. We don't want, I mean, and it's been difficult over the last couple of years because of we've been doing remote schooling last year. We were not able to attend Mass together. A lot of the spiritual retreats that we normally go on were postponed, canceled. So, you know, students have their theology classes, and sometimes in the last couple of years, it's felt like that's it, that's all they've got, you know, and it's something that we need to revive, we need to recover in some way. But it's always, whether it's explicit or not, I think it's always there, and I think there is a tendency in education, and it comes to our school too, that education is about pathway to college and career, and that's all it's about, or that's the main thing it's about. But I think that we have a unique opportunity at De La Salle to expand what education means, and it goes back to the sort of the questions I was talking about earlier of just life questions. I mean, why? What are we called to do here in the world in relation to our peers, our families, teachers? What do I want to do with my life? I mean, that not everybody in our school is a Christian or a Catholic. Quite a few students come to us without any religious background. As educators, we approach that with sensitivity, hopefully, while trying to live out our faith in a way that maybe makes it attractive to students who don't have a religious background. And that's De La Salle's, one of the quotes that he uses is that example is a much gives a much greater impression than words. And that's something that I think all of our teachers, even those who aren't Catholic, strive to do, is to live in a way that makes the life of faith attractive. You know, I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yeah, no, that gives me a good sense. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Time for one more question. Somebody perhaps there online, you have something? Yeah, Judy, speak right up.
Yeah, I'm wondering, since you work with kids that have some academic deficits in one area or another, how do you place those kids in a work position if what they want to do and they actually relates back to their deficit? Say if they want to go into accounting, but their math is not where it should be for that position.
Right. Are you talking about like their corporate work study position at
Right.
school? Or just,
Right.
Yeah. That is, I mean, I know, Ayana, who runs our corporate work study program, she and her team try their best to find the right match. If there's a position that requires, an aptitude for math, I think she's going to the AP calculus class and looking like, ooh, which one of these students would be a good fit here. So definitely there's an attempt to match students and their particular skills into work positions that fit. That's definitely a challenge, especially our freshmen come in. I mean, they're 14 years old.
Yeah.
Whether they have academic skills or not, that's a scary thing to do, to go out into the world and start a job. So I think at the freshman level, the demands are low enough that they're able to just sort of develop into a role. It does happen sometimes that there's something that comes up at work that we're like, oh, the student is having a hard time with this task or with doing this computation or something. And I've in the past worked with employers who find a special tutor or somebody that will help them learn how to do this type of algebraic equation so that they can do it at their job. It doesn't happen often, but it's something that we can do.
It's not unusual, though, for anyone to get a job and realize they need some particular training.
Right.
Yeah. So that makes sense. Andy, I have one last question for you. And I've asked each of our guests this question. What's your advice, both to De La Salle as a school and to St. Charles as a church, in getting on together? We're looking at a really long-term, multiple generation relationship here that just started this year. thoughts?
Well, as I said to you before we started, that I imagine that it's been very overwhelming for St. Charles to have this construction project and this school move into your space. First of all, I mean, we're very grateful that you've opened up the space to us, and I imagine that you may be feeling like this is that we're running our own program over here, and how, you know, how exactly do we fit together? And that's I think the first thing, I mean, the most important thing is that we pray for each other. That we, well, maybe you more than us, that you're forgiving of us, that we're patient with each other. The start of this year has been tough in a lot of ways for the school. You know, opening up in a new space, new administration, coming out of a pandemic, and getting students back in person for the first time for a lot of them. And you know, we've sort of laser focused on all of our challenges,
Which makes perfect sense.
So, you know, hopefully we'll get to a point where collaboration between the school and the church can happen. But I think patience, forgiveness, prayer, you know, and I think we really need St. Charles's influence spiritually, helping us and helping students know about the Catholic faith. And I look forward to opportunities for that to happen.
Andy Poundstone, thank you so much for being with us. And thank you to the Poundstone family for being with us today as well. Next week, Amanda Weingarten will close us out for our last episode. Amanda is college counselor for De La Salle. So thank you all.
Thank you.